I started this festival 14 years ago because I wanted to create a venue for liberty-oriented films. And I knew that, I just instinctively thought that if we had a place where libertarian-oriented films could be shown and get awards, that more films would be made. And over the years that has happened, and we now have, I get hundreds of films submitted now, whereas I used to get dozens. So it's been a great ride watching how the libertarian filmmaking has grown over the years.
How many people review these 300 submissions?
I'm still able to watch all the films. I don't think I'll continue to be able to do that as we grow, and eventually we'll get some volunteers to help preview them and then send them to judges, but right now I watch every movie. It takes me a long time, but I enjoy it. And then I have a selections committee, and when I'm not quite sure about a film, then I'll go to the selection committee and say, what do you think of these? And then I'll usually have maybe 50 films selected, and then we cut it down to about 30. So I have a great group of people who help advise me. Gary Alexander, in fact, has been with me since the very first year, and he's really helpful when I'm not sure, should we take this one or not? And he's really good at telling me yes or no. So.
What are the characteristics of films in a libertarian? What kind of themes are addressed?
Very good question. We want films about self-reliance. Libertarian heroes don't turn to the government for help. They figure things out themselves. They've overcome their own obstacles. We like films about choice and accountability. We're libertarian, not libertine. So we want films where people can make choices, but they also accept the consequences of their actions. We have a lot of films that are anti-government, but that's not the only purpose. Mostly we want to see people doing things for themselves, overcoming obstacles, and being self-reliant.
Is there a particular theme this year that stands out relative to our time?
Yes, the theme of Freedom Fest this year, Freedom Fest is the parent company of the Anthem Film Festival, and the theme this year was Brave New World, Aldous Huxley's book. It's amazing how timely that book is almost 100 years later. And by coincidence, so many of our films addressed many of those themes. I like to curate the films thematically. I'll put maybe 4 films together this time on homelessness. I had 3 films on the pandemic and vaccines. I had 3 films on gender transformation, and so I like to group them thematically and then bring the filmmakers together to talk about the topic as panelists, and our attendees really like that format. So I mentioned vaccines and gender transformation, homelessness, we had films on immigration and the border crisis, we had films on free speech and the student protests that have been happening this spring, so many good libertarian films.
Can people see any of the films through your website?
Not through our website, but on our website we can tell you where they are accessible. So I will contact all the filmmakers and they will tell us where you can see their films, and then I'll send an email out and tell our attendees where to look.
What's the submission deadline for next year?
For next year it'll be the first week of April.
Of 2025?
Of 2025. We'll open for submissions October 15th of 2024. We'll be open for 6 months. And it's really amazing how often my very best films are entered in the very last week.
Is that right?
I don't know why that is, but quite often that's what happens. Although some of our best films this year were entered in October, so it doesn't mean anything. It's just quite often we get them at the end.
What if the films that predicted a Brave New World will be in effect, the Brave New World, before the submission deadline?
Well, I don't even know what our theme will be next year, but and I don't ask my filmmakers to have those themes. Freedom Fest does that with their speakers, but with Anthem I don't. It just so happened that was the way it was. Probably, I think the unseen crisis on vaccines and the rush to market with the vaccines, and the film on gender transformation, I think maybe relate the most to Brave New World, where they use hatcheries instead of sex, and they are always manipulating. So that probably had a lot to do with the Brave New World.
But with this election coming up, you think by springtime we might be on the verge of the Brave New World?
I don't know. I don't know. I've been saying all along, when people would say to me, do you think Biden's going to win or Trump's going to win? I would say, I don't think either one of them is going to be on the ballot in the end. And look at how close we are to that prediction coming true. So I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to predict. I see the tide turning, and one of the things I like about our films is that they are solution-oriented, and I see a lot of people who are getting fed up with the way things are, and they're starting to open their eyes to the truth. And we saw that with the Biden debate. So many of the journalists who finally said, oh wait, this isn't quite working. So maybe we're going to have some changes over the next couple of years. I hope so. I'm not a pessimist. I'm not a nihilist. I don't think the world is going to go up in flames. I see it as a pendulum. We've gone really far to this extreme, and I think it's time for it to go back, and I think it will.